So, hi everybody, my name is Ronald. I'm the co-founder of About Fraud and I'm the webinar host for today. Before we going into all the details about our speakers, about the topic for today, I only have one housekeeping rule to everybody who's in the room today. Please be active. So on the right-hand side, you can see the chat box. I think many of you already found the chat box because we can see already many comments. So that's the place where you can ask your questions, where you can share your experience, share your thoughts. So let's keep it as lively as possible. So we as About Fraud, we organizing these sessions to get experts together to share expertise and insights. So please leverage this opportunity and ask our experts today about document fraud. And that's already our topic for today. We talk about AI, document fraud, automation, onboarding, KYC, KYB. So all these big buzzwords coming together. And we can see a lot of discussion right now in the industry, how to become more efficient in our onboarding process. And we are really glad to have two amazing guests joining us today. So we have Kate, who actually owns this product at Payoneer. So she's in charge for the onboarding flow. And we have Jan as the head of product from Resistant AI joining our session today. But I would like to give a minute to Kate and to Jan to really take the stage and sharing more about what they do and who they are and what is the background. Kate, the stage is yours.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Ronald, for the introduction. Yeah, my name is Kate, and I'm Identity Verification Product Manager in Payoneer. I've been specializing in different domains, including KYC, risk, automations, identity verification. And basically, last year, we launched the automation with Resistant AI for unstructured documents, and we're going to share our experience around this.
Maybe Kate, you can spend maybe a few seconds. What is Payoneer? What are you doing? I think many of us know Payoneer, but not maybe everybody.
Sure. Payoneer is a financial company providing a payment solution for small and medium businesses and helping them to transact, to receive their money, to pay their providers, and to basically grow their businesses. We have different products, including some domestic global payment services and like working capital services, where basically we're helping the businesses to grow and flourish.
Perfect. So I think that also gives some perspective because you act global and you have different kind of products, which makes it more complex.
We're helping around 190 countries to transact. And on top of all the products that we are providing, we must comply with the regulations. And fraud prevention is one of the most important domains in Payoneer, because we need to be as much as possible to lower our risks and be able to basically prevent the penetration of fraudsters into our system even before we onboard them. That's why we're using Resistant AI to help us cope with that.
Cool. Thanks for being here today, Kate. Jan, the stage is yours. Who are you?
Thanks. Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Jan. Thanks for joining today. I'm leading the document forensics initiative at Resistant AI. What we do in a nutshell is authenticate documents at scale. We really focus on document fraud, right? We want to be best at that in the industry. So we're checking documents such as account statements, utility bills, incorporation certificates, pay slips, other KYC documents, you name it, right? We're very agnostic in anything that's submitted to us. And yeah, Resistant AI's machine learning does more than just spot fraudulent documents, right? What we're going to be talking about today is, it shows you which documents you can trust and automate for approval.
Perfect. Thanks, Jan, for being here today. So the audience can see we have two really true experts in the document automation fraud detection environment here today. And again, please take the chance and ask me any kind of questions which you might have to our experts. And as I mentioned initially, today we are really going into the practical sides of this topic. So we are really glad that Kate is here today to share a bit more details about what was the journey or what was the process in implementing a new process, and how did it work out, and what are the benefits. And yeah, I mean, Kate, the stage is yours to really give us an insight as much as you can to share your experience.
Thank you so much, Ronald. So I'll take over
Mm.
and proceed to the slide. So we integrated with Resistant AI in 2021, and at the beginning, it was a very low traffic of unstructured documents because we were facing the difficulties of our operations where the representatives couldn't tell fraud from non-fraudulent and authentic documentation, because in unstructured documents, it's the most challenging task to take the right decision and to tell fraud from authentic documents. So in the beginning, it was just a few thousand documents per week. And now we are sending huge traffic to Resistant AI on a daily basis. So right now, Resistant AI is not only a recommendation as it was at the beginning, but a decision maker. So we launched the automation of document review last year with Resistant AI. We started with a small volume of the automations, and we are gradually growing. And basically, we have the automation around serial fraud, where basically Resistant AI are providing us the hits of serial fraudsters. And just to define the serial fraud, Jan is the expert, but I can give you just the definition of it, where basically you have a large-scale industrial fraud, and the fraudsters are using the same template, but since it's done using huge groups of documents, and when it's been checked by the KYC representatives, if it's going through one person, this person can catch only a few documents from the group and not the entire group. That's why we needed this solution, a scalable solution, to help us detect this, like all of them, and catch them as a group and mark them as a group, and to see the connection between them, and prevent the penetration of bad actors like belonging to this group in the future. So that's why Resistant helped us here, and the solution was maturing throughout the time, and we were kind of picky, and we were coming with different requirements and adjustments, and they were great in like being customer-centric partner, and we eventually felt as design partners with Resistant AI. So I'll move on. Like I said, it is hard to eye detect fraud, and we faced this challenge a few years ago because our operations couldn't cope with this task. And it's obvious that AI is stronger than a human eye when detecting fraud, because AI is scalable, is consistent, like you can use the same models, and you can be more persistent in terms of fraud detection. You can measure the false alarms rate, and you can improve that. You can detect new patterns in fraud and basically apply this algorithm to the newcomers. While humans are limited, just having two eyes and sometimes doubting if the decision is right. And sometimes it's time consuming, and it's also expensive to run the operations, and it's not scalable. And basically you cannot measure false positive and false negative alarms, like how precise they are taking their decisions. So on top of that, there is sophisticated tool-based forgery, which is almost impossible to detect with a human eye. I will describe the journey of the automation. So like I said, we had an issue with identifying digital forgeries. Mainly, this is the most challenging task for unstructured documents, and I will give you some examples of unstructured documents we are working with. So it can be a utility bill, like proof of residence documents or proof of address documents, like this, that's the second name. Invoices, bank statements, company verification documents. So all those are very challenging to process. And that's why Resistant AI helped us with that, taking into consideration all the requirements. And we were very strict because we had to comply with the regulations. So it took us some time to adjust the solution because we had to make sure that the solution is efficient enough, that we are not closing good customers due to the false alarms. That's why it took us a while in silent mode to measure the performance of Resistant AI and to adjust the performance based on our risk appetite. And it was challenging for both sides because we had to change the definition of the indicators, for example, because we want to be strict around some specific document type, or we want to Resistant AI to develop a new indicator. And mainly we were laughing about that the new development was taking around 2 weeks, which is very fast and almost impossible, but Resistant were delivering this for us because it was needed and it was essential for us to run the business. And with the time, Resistant AI helped us to automate 82% of document fraud decisions, meaning that there is no human intervention. And the precision of and accuracy of Resistant AI detections went as high as 98, 99%, which is amazing. And I must say that it was a joint effort and it was a journey because we were learning from each other. We were building the solution together. We were validating the performance of each other, providing feedbacks that we were receiving from different stakeholders. And this is how we managed to mature and create the stable solution that is running in production right now. If you have questions, feel free to ask in the chat. So I want to share some insights because it's not only business relationship with Resistant AI, it's more than that. And I'm proud to share that we were mutually growing together. It was new both for Payoneer and Resistant AI. They were building new products for us based on the risk appetite and based on the needs. For example, like recently I heard that risk department requested to be able to detect some editor that was previously not considered fraudulent, but at some point they realized that there are a lot of fraudsters using it. So, and I know that Resistant AI developed it within 2 weeks just to help us close this issue. And now it's one of the indicators that goes into the automation. So large enough to deliver, small enough to care. I believe this is like the best description of our partnership because we do feel valued and we do feel important and we do feel that we are heard. So, and we get fast results. That's why I believe that Resistant AI are mature as a company. And the approach, can-do approach, because like there is no question, never we heard no. Resistant AI, we're always thinking about the solution, even if it sounds crazy, and we come with some idea that is not realistic. At some point, it becomes realistic, and we even get to the implementation of that. Design partners, like I said, originally Resistant was the consultant, and at some point we were so sure, and we trusted blindly Resistant AI, and turned Resistant into decision maker. By the way, adjusting the product throughout the way because like we were facing different requirements, new requirements from risk and compliance, and we had to adjust to them together. Getting things done, like I said, 2 weeks is a plug number. And it's kind of an internal joke already. Everything can be done in 2 weeks, and it's a partnership with ongoing interactions. And as a vendor manager, previously I was managing Resistant AI, I can say that it's very important to invest into trust and relationship with a partner, and having like weekly meetings, shared roadmaps, shared road shows together, setting the KPIs and adjusting to the KPIs sometimes, changing the definition of the solution, and never stopping the real-time communication. Real life interaction gains. So Resistant were visiting us in Israel here, and we were visiting Resistant in Prague, our team. By the way, us is not just me, but R&D, also other product managers and solution department, and analytics department. So it's a joint effort, and we were also always working and thinking together how to improve the solution. So developing this sense of connectedness and this bond between us contributed to the success of the partnership. And brainstorming together, Resistant AI, from what I remember, have 17 PhDs in their board of directors. Maybe like you have more right now. So like you do realize that those are smart people with the creative solutions, always ready to innovate and bring some new and fresh ideas into life. And that was the prerequisite of success. So, and just the journey, like the timeline and the milestones of the solution. So request, we had different requests. Like I will give you an example. For example, we do not receive copies of documents. So Resistant AI developed indicators for us to detect that. So because it's like we cannot make sure that the customer owns the original document. So we came with a request for detecting copies, basically multiply scanned documents. Then we turn it into the action item. Then Resistant come with a solution. Then we match the expectation, and we basically measure the performance also on our end, like reviewing the documents, going through thousands of documents together, and having joint forums with the feedback and adjustments and like performance talks as well, like how we want it, maybe to change something, maybe to add something, maybe to become stricter. So QA phase as well, silent mode. We feel the responsibility in front of our customers and also the operation department. Like we need to be sure that the solution is accurate and scalable. So we were testing it for months before going live. And then the adjustment and post-launch monitoring that help us make sure that we are still, Resistant AI is still performing on a high level, and we are always providing the feedback, real-time feedback to Resistant AI. Let's say if there is a new type of forgery or there is some new indicator needs to be developed because we can see a pattern, or risk department can see a pattern, or business department comes and says that there is some issue. So it's a very lively and ongoing partnership, and I believe that we successfully managed to build this together. Please ask questions. Jan, do you want to jump in?
Yeah. I might just add, because Payoneer really helped us map out that ideal customer journey, right? Because the volumes that we were seeing, all of a sudden, it was a jump for us. And when you can't start automating directly. If we get into some of the issues of automation, especially if you're not familiar with the inputs, meaning the data, the documents, right, where they're coming from. And Payoneer operates globally, right? And that's why they found us. It's not just the PhDs, even though it's great always being the dumbest person in the room for me. I enjoy that very much. But we started easy, right? But Payoneer was pushing us. And that's where we came up with, within 2 weeks, we'll have a solution for you, or you'll see where we can get within those 14 days. And I say 14 days because I include the weekends that we worked on those in those weeks. So we started easy. We started very heavily on the manual side, and we were more recommending, right, providing all of that forensic evidence to the individuals that are looking at those documents. And as Kate mentioned, right, there are new team members spread out all over the world. You need to educate them. You need to continuously educate them, and it's very difficult if you don't have an intuitive solution to do that. And there's a lot of information value in those indicators or the triggers of the detectors that we provide, and sometimes it can get lost in that information, right? So that's where, again, Payoneer pushed us, and we came up with more, customizable scoring on specific scenarios for documents. And if moving forward, right, next 2 weeks, we were able to automate at a much higher rate. And when we talk about automation, it's not just approving documents, but we want to be absolutely positive when we see a fraudulent document. So if we see the content, for example, manipulated on a document, we absolutely 100% sure that there's fraudulent intent behind that, we can decline that, right? So we can trigger automated workflow goes directly to risk, for example. So that's how we kind of mapped out that customer journey. Payoneer has really been a vital partner in doing that. So I want to put that out there, and thanks to Kate and the team, because it takes a village, and we learned a lot. And it's not just the feedback coming from the customer; there are additional streams of feedback, right? Because we have a team that monitors documents, monitors the data on a daily basis, looks for anomalies in the data. It's not just like a tool or an engine that we throw over the fence, right? It's the content, the consistent support of that. And Kate's team's been instrumental of that. Our Q&A and operations have been instrumental, but I cannot not mention the R&D again. So it's not just the PhDs, it's the teams behind them as well, which are doing a fantastic job and delivering unbelievable tech on a daily basis, and quickly reacting. Right, that's what Kate was mentioning. I think we're very fast, and it's one of the key values at Resistant AI of really reacting so that we keep our customers protected, and they're not always in reactive mode themselves.
I think
I did 5 cents here. So the partnership with Resistant AI is not only around automation; it spreads beyond that. For example, we deliver training to our operational team because they also need to understand how the tool works. And the documents that go to the manual review, and Resistant have an amazing solution for the manual checks, which is called the Studio, where basically you can see what was exactly changed on the document, incremental changes, and with the time we adjusted the interface UI for the representatives based on the feedbacks, because sometimes the language was not, we don't have all the native speakers working in the operations, because that's why sometimes it was challenging for them to understand the wording of the indicators. And we were collecting the feedback within the company from the operational teams to make sure that it's clear for them and they understand what it means, and they understand how critical one of the indicators is, and this is something that should drive the decision in the end of the day. On top of that, we were delivering the training, Resistant AI using additional tools to see the fraud. And for our team, just in terms of vision, they had to align, because you have different people who see the document review from their own perspective. And here, since you have one tool, you need to have one approach. And it's something ongoing because the Resistant AI are developing new indicators. That's why we need to be updated and to update the operational team with the changes. Let's say Resistant can now show some highlights in the document with the dot. And for the reps, it's a huge change, like adding the zoom in function. It seems to be is something small, but it's not, because it changes the way people work. So being transparent around here, sending the updates, being in touch with the operational teams, and being in touch with Resistant AI when there is some issue or there is some spike is essential for the success around partnership and automation.
Yeah. I just want to highlight something which I've seen now during your presentation, Kate. I think for everybody who's joining now and maybe who still operates on a manual process, I think it's important to understand just plug and play, it doesn't work. So there's a whole process behind. It's a journey. It's a project. It's a partnership. It takes time. I think that's also what you highlighted very well, Kate, that you also have learnings on the way. So you need to adapt. And as we know from other fraud areas as well, fraud prevention is never plug and play. It takes a while to adapt. It takes a while to adjust. And also fraud is changing all the time. So you always need to be ahead of the fraudster and adapting even a well-tuned system. I think that was very well presented, Kate, to on one hand side show the benefits of automation, but what also show what is needed to get to this point. And you also pointed out that you working with your partner very close together. So it's more like a partnership instead of a supplier relationship here, because this process for you as a company is very important for compliance, for scalability, and for many other KPIs. So that's why you also focus a lot with your team in implementing this journey or this process, and also stay on top.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's which a lot of companies sometimes need to understand also when they start a project like this. Maybe Jan, maybe you can point out from your perspective as well that what is normally needed for a company, like starting this journey, or what are maybe the typical pitfalls which you could potentially avoid with the team of Kate. But I assume there are some misunderstanding sometimes of companies that you might just think, maybe it takes like a month and then we are done.
And there are definitely journeys that are very much shorter, right? But we understand, Payoneer being a global business, they want to scale their operations. They want to do, they want high precision, right? But they also don't want to jeopardize customer experience, right? So they're challenging us to be a lot better in all the realms of fraud detection, right? But also in the performance, right? So we want to be quick in returning that results because there are SLAs in place. We want to reduce those manual reviews. But then there are customers with more lenient compliance, or maybe the risk appetite is much different than Payoneer. Maybe from day one they can use what you're seeing now is that studio, right? Basically, a user interface where they can upload a document and already from day one consume results regarding the authenticity of a document, or actually we can disprove that authenticity, right? So the journey can be very short, but what I kind of pointed out is this is with that studio you can start easy. You can use it manually, and use the information value that we provide as a kind of direction of where it should take you, right? Because you have, as a customer, you're privy to additional data, additional markers, right? Because the document's not going to tell you the full story every single time. Most of the time it will, but fraudsters are getting more creative, right? So they are trying to circumvent the systems, right? And then you have companies that think they do fraud well, and basically they're putting stopgaps in because and they're constantly being reactive because they see a new emerging type of fraud coming, right? So they basically put that bubble gum on the pipe and hope it holds and no fraudsters get in because they feel that they've solved today's problem. And we're saying that that's definitely one approach, but we philosophy of Resistant AI is to dig a much deeper mode. So we are taking every angle that we can to disprove the authenticity of the document. That's why we provide like a full story of what's going on the document. And you can do that from day one. The idea behind increasing that precision and reducing the manual review is understanding exactly what type of fraud is in your specific data, right? From which region it's coming in, from what document type, right? So all of that helps us build a risk profile around it, and that can take time. But I'm not saying it's a long journey. I'm saying that with a large volume in a relatively short amount of time, we can create that risk profile, right? So then going back to what Kate was saying around it needs to be intuitive, and the people that are looking at those manual reviews, we can, it's managed by exception, right? So anything that goes into manual review can go to the people that are best in reviewing that case, because we've met quite a few of them at Payoneer, and they're experts in what they do as well. And we want them to focus only on what they should be focusing on. So again, going back to the scenarios, if we've seen that scenario once, a human should not be seeing that again. The machine should be able to handle that every next.
So basically, just let me add a few words here. This is how the process worked. Like, we were validating the performance of resistant AI and comparing it behind the scenes to the manual checks. And once we saw the pattern, let's say when resistant say it's fraud, and then we can see that the manual checks also results in fraud detection, then not to overload the operations because we can blindly trust resistant AI around this specific area, we automated that. But it took us some time to get to this decision and to be sure that this is the right thing to do. Jan, I think you have a question here about the tools and techniques that you use to develop the automation platforms. You're muted.
Yeah, I'm looking for the question. Oh, I got to scroll down. There we go. Where's entities? All right. So, Ronald, can everybody see the question? Maybe it might.
Yes, everybody can see it. So you don't need to repeat the question. Everybody can see the question from Mirella in the chat box.
So we are very, very, so what makes us, maybe this is a question, how we differentiate from others as well, right? Because what resistant AI, I mentioned, we want to be best at fraud, right? So I'd say that the other players are very, regionally focused and niche in what they do, focusing on like specific document types, right? Whereas we go about all kinds of documents. And we take a different approach, whether we're talking PDF document or we're talking an image document, right? With PDF document, PDF is basically a computer program, right? Whatever you want to visualize for the user, you can do so. It's source code. So it's I'd say it's much easier to detect manipulation on PDF documents, given the structure of the document that you have available to you, right? So that's one fraud technique in manipulating the content of a document that we would be able to pick up on very, very easily, right? But it's not just that. What also that PDF format gives you is, because these larger corporations issue these documents in masses, we're able to model for specific document types. And that's where that authentication piece comes into play, right? Because that's when we can say a document is outright trusted. You can trust that document. So, and I realized that, Ronald was asking a question around pitfalls, right? So, and one of the common mistakes that companies and organizations make is they go in and automate, fairly quickly and don't take fraud into consideration, right? So they want to check all the boxes in terms of regulation, and run maybe a proof of address check. And what they would do is look at the document from a content analysis perspective, pull the information that they need, and then report back whether or not that address exists and checks the boxes, right? Path of least resistance. And what we're doing is adding that step and saying, can you trust this document that's coming into your workflow? Because if you already have an existing workflow and you're automating that workflow, and you're not checking a document for fraud, that environment's already full of fraudsters. So you have financial criminals flooding your space and leveraging whatever your system has to offer, right? So we're saying, don't automate too soon, or don't wait until you have like the perfect solution either, right? But fraud is definitely should not be an afterthought. It should be one of the first steps, if not the first step in the process, because once you've filtered out those documents, whether or not you can trust them, those maybe even more expensive pieces, subsequent parts of the workflow, you don't need to do, right? So if you can filter a document for even low quality, for example, right? That doesn't mean that the person that's submitting the document has a fraudulent mindset. That just means that maybe, there were low lighting conditions when snapping an image, senior citizens may take several attempts to produce a quality image, right? Because they may have their old, can't even call them smartphones. My grandmother still has the segmented display. So that she would actually, use an old camera, upload it, whatever the journey of that image is. And we'll show you that full footprint of that image, and what journey it's taken. So we can report back on that quality immediately, right? Within a couple of seconds, so near real time, and say, upload a better quality image, and maybe educate the user around how they could upload a better quality image, because the fraud detection may not catch anything other than those quality or the low quality detections. But what does that mean? Somebody has to look at it, right? Somebody has to, or even a machine would extract content from that, and quality is essential for that part of the workflow. So we're saying that, why move forward there when we can already do a lot of the work for you? And even this can deter fraudsters. We've seen that. We've seen like 5% of the fraudsters being deterred just because they get an immediate response. They're not expecting that, right? They get an immediate response. Hey, upload a better quality document. I'm going to go elsewhere because these people probably have better checks than the next guy. So that's kind of where we see one of the mistakes that customers make in that, automating without fraud detection, but also, trying to build the whole thing, building that mothership, I like to call it, right? Making it perfect. It's one of the biggest mistakes that the fintechs make. They're basically on a journey for, perfection, superior operational efficiency, and that end-to-end solution takes time to build, right? So going back to what can you do now, not only to scale your business, but also to service your customers, right? And give them a better customer experience. So if you can give 90% of your customers on day one a better experience, why not do that, right? And again, what we can offer with the various features around the fraud space, and whether or not you can trust the document, it makes this journey a lot easier for a lot of our customers. And these are the kind of pitfalls that we see. But another one is, we hear a lot, picking and choosing which documents to submit, right? For whatever reason, right? Maybe I only want to submit documents that I think are fraudulent, right? But because we hear a lot, and we understand that customers know their data best, right? But just based on many of the proof of concept projects that we run, the value is in the unknown, right? So when we come back and show them, hey, were you aware that there is a serial forgery case in your data? And all of a sudden we associate that one account to 16 other accounts, right? So you have a criminal group or an individual operating 16 accounts with fraudulent intent. So that's something that we can report back on. So it's not just the one document, it's creating context based on multiple documents and even multiple data points that we can obtain from those documents, right? So, I don't want to run away from questions. So if there is any additional, questions around the space and how we go about our fraud detection, because I don't want to get into too much detail in terms of detectors, because that I'm very enthusiastic about that, and we could be here for another hour or two. But
I have
yeah.
2 more questions.
Okay.
Maybe one question would be, I mean, you mentioned you're dealing with documents from all over the world, and you're dealing with all type of documents. So most likely you're going to face the situation from time to time that you're going to get a document which you have never seen before. So how are you going to deal with this? It's more like, is it like a special document which goes into a different process because you never saw the structure before? Or would you take this as unstructured and you keep running the process as you do with all the other documents? Maybe that's an interesting question, because we can see people joining from Pakistan and other parts of the world maybe share documents which maybe hasn't been processed so far. So how do you deal with this?
Mm-hmm. You basically answered, you provided 2 answers, and both are right? If we have not seen the document before, and that's very typical for regions that we haven't operated in, even though I mentioned, Payoneer is in 195 countries. So we're seeing documents, all kinds of documents, unstructured documents from these regions. If we see a new type of document, we will analyze it for fraud, right? So all of those, like I mentioned on the PDF side, internal, the structure of the document, if it changes, we'll tell you what's changed, how it's changed. If something has been removed, it's been removed already from there, very high confidence that the document has been manipulated. And it helps build a story as to why we should potentially reject this customer and not give him our business. And on the image side, something that we haven't talked about, it's a very, very different approach, right? So image is pixel representation. So what we do there is look for individual characters. So again, what differentiates us from others is we not only will we sit in any system because we're API driven and we're very easy to integrate, but we operate globally, and there's nobody that does it at the scale that we do, right? And in the markets that we do, and so we've seen plenty of documents, and I think it's over 50 million that we reported a couple months ago that we've analyzed thus far, and it's growing. And I assume that's just another reason why Payoneer, has joined our journey to become the best in fraud detection as well. And Payoneer's in 195 countries. But going back to the question regarding documents that we haven't seen, those triggers are still valid, very much valid. Of course, if we've seen the document more times, that prompts us to create a model where we can then work with an additional layer of that machine learning architecture, which is the anomaly detection, right? So even if somebody's creating something from scratch, we would be able to detect that, right? So this is what we see even from these fake bank account statement.com operations, right? They would create a document that looks pristine, looks exactly like a Wells Fargo bank account statement, right? That you see on the screen. And we would be able to easily detect that because we know that, for example, the object distribution and the source code level of that PDF document is different than from the original issuer, right? It's not just that, but even though on the visual side of things, it's 100% 100% accurate, there's still information in the fonts that these organizations pay good money for custom fonts, and we're able to determine that the fraudster is trying to emulate those fonts because they're using a system or an editor, which we'll also report back on, which is an enterprise level and is not the PDF library, for example, that the original institution would use, right? Or we know that this institution only issues or generates documents on a Tuesday and Thursday. Fraudsters potentially wouldn't know that, but that's just one angle, again, of the many and many that we have that we can use to in our favor and that we leverage to report back on any anomalies that we see in the document. So yes, easy to detect out of the box without even seeing the document, given all the models that we have in place. If we've seen it more, we can even authenticate that document. So the only thing that you're basically losing if we're seeing the document for the first time is the fact that we can't say without a doubt that document is trusted. Whereas if we see more of those documents, that's very, very much data driven, just like any AI company. That's where we can provide that golden seal of approval.
Mm-hmm. And maybe that's a good timing to trigger a few questions to the audience. In the meantime, we can already check the next questions. So again, as mentioned initially, we're trying to keep the session as practice-oriented as possible. I mean, Kate shared her story, and now we have a high-level understanding what she has done and where she's right now. But also would be good for us to understand where are you right now. So we're going to trigger now 3 polls. So the first one is really, are you dealing with document fraud today? And there are 4 answers possible. And I'm going to take a moment to read through, and please join this poll here. And I'm going to trigger 2 more in the same direction. So has document fraud been consideration when you look at document automation? Again, maybe there are different reasons why companies want to automate this process, but in Kate's example, fraud is one important component, but of course it's the speed, reliable. There's a lot of other reasons as well beyond fraud why companies want to automate. So please also pick your choice here. And then we have another one. Where are you in the document automation journey today? So again, like, do you believe that document is valid? Did you get rid of, or maybe already completely automated? So please take a moment to go through the questions. We keep going with the questions from the chat, and then in a moment we go back to the polls and see the results. Kate, do you want to take one of the 2 questions which came in?
I believe it's for Jan, because we spoke about synthetic ID fraud, and this is something that we call serial fraud. It's basically the same definition. But Jan can probably share more information about the solution and algorithm behind. And considering the suspected use AI in fraud execution, is there any checklist that identifies fraud or forgery in the documents records? It's again for Jan, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a very valid question today, right? And plenty of academic discussions could be had about it. But in all seriousness, we see synthetically generated ID documents in our customers' data, and outside, the scalable fraud detection capabilities, which will deter, or at least at very least significantly slow fraudsters down, because their ROI is in speed. In attempting to onboard with a service such as Payoneer. So yeah, outside of detecting fraud from this angle, we also build models around data that tells us, how the document was created, and more importantly, how the document looks sitting on, for example, a flat surface, or being held in your hand. Right? Our classifiers not only look for like noise patterns, right, on the ID, or looking at backgrounds, because you can quickly change those. We've seen it in various customers' data where fraudsters would even have like different catalogs of those backgrounds, because they understand that rudimentary fraud checks look for that mahogany table, right, or that specific carpet, right, or any other background that's very easy to detect. And even we've seen humans be able to make that connection. So yeah, going back to noise patterns, our classifiers look not only at those noise patterns, right, but like we do for like a single image of an ID. But in general, we call an ensemble approach that utilizes what we know about the properties of the document in context with all similar documents we've seen or scraped from external source like the internet. That being said, AI does a great job generating a face for let's say an ID card, but not so much in creating like copy. So if we're talking unstructured documents, generative AI is not there yet, right? Not to say they won't be there, But on these ID cards, yes, we do have models, and we take various angles in detecting for example, that flat document on a surface to make it look like it's an actual ID card. But that's just one angle we take, right? So with that additional context that we can build at the document property level, or from the fraud analysis that we've run, we can, again, to Kate's point, in terms of serial fraud, connect multiple ID documents or documents that go along with those ID documents. Because if you are spending, more money, for example, at a crypto exchange, you will have additional checks that are needed, right? So it's not just proof of identity, but it's also that proof of address. It may be additional. As you increase the stakes, they're regulated, and they have to go through these additional checks. They have to, or they're penalized.
I have a short question from my side, maybe looking into the future or looking into what happened the last maybe 6 to 12 months. Do you see more sophisticated fraudsters coming who are more difficult to detect? Or would you say it's more on the other side, that we're just getting a bigger amount of attempts of fraudsters who trying going through the system? Is that one way or the other, or maybe both coming at the same time? Not sure.
It's definitely going to be a mix of both. You will have those sophisticated fraudsters that are continuously trying to find their way around these checks, because liveness checks, right, we're supposed to detect a lot more than around the card or around the selfie itself. But some of these liveness checks, we've seen don't work as well as others. Plus, you can also emulate your camera within the iPhone and already present a video, right, to the SDK that's collecting that information. So there are ways around that, and so there will be additional checks and verifications in place, but you don't want to introduce too much friction, right, into that workflow. You still want that customer experience, and we're really used to everything basically working, right? Before, you would have to go into a bank, set up an account or whatever. Today, you can do it from your couch, right? And these organizations want it that way, because the customer is going to go where it's easy to bank with, or who is easy to bank with, or whatever service gives me what I need for quicker, and with much higher utility. So yeah, that's like where we see the sophistication of fraud and how much it's going to be. I'd compare it to spam, and I'd compare it to the scams that we see on a daily basis now. I don't know about you, but I mean, I do not order that many things from eBay, but I get a text message every other day saying I need to log into my account immediately, or something's happening, and so this is scalable fraud, and they're targeting the 1%, just like the Nigerian princes did before, of people that just jump on things because of emotions or whatever the reason may be. Someone calls you. I just had a friend called by the central bank in the Czech Republic, allegedly, and she was asked to log into her bank account, because there was a discrepancy there. But because we have a lot of conversations around that, she said, this doesn't sound right? Why is somebody calling me from the central bank? Doesn't make sense. But he will get that story straight next time. What the point is, the fraudster is learning as well, right? So they're learning. They sit down at the table every day, find out who they could attack, how to attack them, and they do reap the benefits. They wouldn't do it if there wasn't money to be had, for them. So this is part of their job, basically. So they are exploiting it. And the comparison to spam before, I could actually read my email or open every email a while back, and it was valuable information. Today, I mean, everybody's different, but I mean, one out of one out of maybe 20 emails I get on my corporate account, not even talking about my spam account, are valid emails.
Thanks for sharing this, Jan. I mean, we're getting close to the hour. I just also want to provide some insights to the polls which we did. It's quite interesting. So the first question which we asked was, are you already having a document automation process in place today? And very surprisingly, or maybe less surprisingly, depends on how you look at this, 53% said we didn't start yet. Everything's done manually. And I hope everybody who answered this question with number C, the manual process, hopefully learned something today in this session, especially with the journey from Kate to see the benefits, but also understanding there's some effort behind and really doing it right, especially if you're looking at this at scale. So that's why thanks for joining and thanks for answering this poll. We hope we gave some hints or insights how to start the process. For the second question, we asked about how much, let's say, document fraud is really as part of your consideration looking into automating the process. Here's more like an equal answer. So number one was that's why we did not automate yet. It's like 30%. Also number B got 30%. We developed more like a risk policy around to keep it safe. And number D as well is 30%. It never came up. Also interestingly, if you start looking into automating your document process, that you never touch the area of fraud. Very interesting. Maybe you should also maybe align with some other teams internally. It would be interesting to understand which kind of businesses never saw fraud in a document process. So very interesting. And last but not least, in the last question, we asked about how you're dealing with document fraud. And the winner with 74% is we review a sample of documents manually. Again, here it reflects the first question. That's still a big part of the audience who's joining today is looking at documents, document fraud with a very manual process. And again, we have seen today there are options of automating this with the right team and the right partner. You can actually achieve great results. Again, looking at the hour, maybe Kate and Jan, any last advices from your side before we closing the session today?
Yeah. I want to spread the fear. Sorry, Kate. I want to spread the fear. So if we can bring the slides back, because I think I owe, we talked about serial forgery, right? Serial fraud in general. And I did want to show that one case. All I need is a minute for that. So here, right now, you see the document. You may see that it's being classified on that left side as an HSBC bank statement, which clearly it's not, right? Because it's got a Wells Fargo logo, but maybe we're seeing this document for the first time, right? And we don't know that it's Wells Fargo, but something triggered our classification saying that it's HSBC. So already that's a red flag for us, and we're saying it's high risk because we see other issues with the document that's clearly shown, right? So Kate was mentioning this is very helpful for those representatives that are looking at the document and manually adjusting the case. So they see immediately what's wrong with the document, but then in the same data sample, even if it wasn't in the same data sample. So this is what's neat about the solution, that we can go cross tenants and understand, because we're only building context not based on the content, but on the features of the document, right? So what we see is, if I just go back to that document, that's these three here are very similar, right? From a visual perspective, and already that would trigger our clustering mechanism. That second document. So this is a serial forgery case. And if we go even further, what fraudsters do is then, because we're highlighting that this is rejected, they start changing the environment, right? So they're losing speed and we're making it much harder for them. But if you take a look at these two documents, both are fraudulent documents, and you can see that they've kind of creased the paper and started creating multiple versions of this document, which again looks the same as these and as this one, this initial one. but we're catching it based on that clustering mechanism. And I think the largest cluster that we've seen has around 13,000 or north of 13,000 documents, and we've just over 3,000 documents. 3,000 clusters in the traffic, in all of our customers' traffic. Even that hand right there that you see on the left side is fake. Yeah. So that's what I wanted to leave you guys with, that it is a problem, and human eyes is not enough. And this is where we see fraud going in the next couple of months. It's already an issue.
I would like to say a few words about fintech. It's becoming obvious that it's impossible to operate without AI-based solution for document forgery detection. And from our experience, Resistant have been a great partner, attitude-wise and product-wise. And I believe that it's a very good choice to start the automation journey and to improve the fraud detection performance around the company, especially in fintech with all the requirements and compliance that are becoming only stricter with the time.
Perfect. We made it almost in time. Special thanks to Kate for being here today, being the expert in the first line and sharing your journey, your insights, and your expertise to the audience. Jan, also thanks a lot for being here and sharing your product knowledge and really providing good insights for the audience. As we have seen, it's a very relevant topic. Still a big part of the audience is looking at these topics manually today. And as Kate mentioned, the manual process is maybe not the future. So we need to start looking at this topic as soon as we can to understand at least where the company needs to move. And again, we know it's a journey, so we need to plan and doing the right steps. Perfect. And also thank you very much for the audience for joining. Thanks for all the questions. I hope you got some great learnings out of this, and we hope to see you next time. Thanks a lot and have a nice day.
Thank you, Ronald.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.